But you're fooling yourself if you think you're going to move to Mexico or Canada or European Union or the UK or Australia. All those countries have extradition, right? They can go after your assets. What they'll do first off is they'll freeze your assets in the U.S. They'll stop your merchant processing here in the United States, and then if they have treaties with the country, they'll freeze the assets in that country. They'll go after that as well. So those are all things that they'll start to go after.
I'm getting cold sweats right now as you're talking because I know that this is out there, and people that are doing it are innocently probably saying, yeah, I'll go ahead and let so-and-so set up my merchant account. But what they don't realize is that is a jailable offense, and if you get caught, you are most likely going to jail. Like, that is not a civil offense.
No.
For the beginning of this one, I was going to ask you to tell me like the craziest like story in dealing with the FTC slash cases. Like, you have something funny that you can think of that's like, obviously without giving away names or anything, like a anecdotal funny. If not, we'll just switch to the
I
episode.
never think it's funny dealing with the FTC. I mean, I always think it's
More on the client side, not the FTC side. I don't want to be perceived as making fun of the FTC. More of like you had a crazy client who did blah blah blah, and then like ended up running down the hotel butt naked or some bullshit. Some like crazy chronicles of an attorney, chronicles of an FTC attorney.
but there was a case. What was Jesse's last name? Oh my gosh, I don't remember the case name. Otherwise, that was a crazy one. So, what was the name of that case?
While you're looking it up, has any marketer been like, I'm upset, I will sue the government for harassment? And has anyone ever tried to like go after the government bodies that are going after them?
Jeremy Johnson, when iWorks got sued by the FTC, he published a website called IHateTheFTC.com.
Okay, wait. So I don't know about this. At time, give me the TLDR. How did that go? What's
How did that go?
that's such an awkward laugh. He's like, yeah. How did it go for him? How did it play out for him? Oh God, I don't want to hear this. It's not gonna be good.
No, 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 no. It didn't work good for him because he went to jail.
Okay, sorry. I don't. That's not funny. I'm sorry, Jeremy. I apologize. But I didn't expect that. I was like, oh, he probably got like. Did he go? Oh, why do we do this, people? Why do we do this?
No, he went to jail. So yeah,
Did it? Was it for that? Did doing that website and going on this full frontal attack, did it make things worse for him, or did he go to jail because of whatever he was accused of, and he was going to go to jail anyways?
it was an interesting case because Jeremy Johnson was a businessman that was operating out. And this is a crazy case. You want to talk about crazy cases?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, so the FTC brings an action against a company called iWorks out of St. George, Utah. It's operated by this guy named Jeremy Johnson. So Jeremy Johnson, I don't know. I mean, I've met him. I've been with him. I've been in the room with him, but we don't know each other really well. But he was a pretty big marketer in the day, and he did a lot of stuff on. It was a lot of the trial offers and everything else. Well, with iWorks, what got him into trouble is that he was running a lot of continuity programs, subscriptions, trial offers, and he needed to get a lot of merchant processing. So what he did is he had dozens of people sign up for straw accounts to get merchant accounts, and then they would do these online offers. Pay $1, and then after 30 days it's $90 or whatever it is. And so when one account would get shut down or the chargeback rate would get too high, he'd move to the next, and then they would transfer money across state lines. So what happens in this case is when the FTC brought the iWorks case against Jeremy Johnson, they also turned it over to the Department of Justice because they said, well, this is wire fraud, wire transfer fraud. It's also, factoring and money laundering and a whole bunch of other things. So there were two separate actions that were in this. One was that this case was, a criminal case based upon his activities in the merchant processing and transferring funds across interstate lines. And then you had this civil action by the FTC. So when he gets sued and arrested for this, he goes ballistic. He sets up a website called IHateTheFTC.com. He starts blasting him, telling him what's going on with the case. And then it gets become urban lore legend, like that this guy goes up and he knows that he's being investigated. So he's converted a lot of stuff into like gold bars and money. And then he's going out in the desert in Utah and Nevada and Arizona and hiding gold across.
And he's talking about all this crap publicly?
He's not talking about that, but there's like among the community, everybody knows that like he thought for years he was going to get hit by the FTC. And the problem with this guy is like he's doing charitable things. He's flying helicopters to save kids, and he's going to, third world countries and donating, and he's doing a whole bunch of charitable work. So his public image, he's trying to portray as this really, admirable person, but behind the scenes, he's running these offers where people are getting in these continuities and they're paying these subscription fees without full disclosure. The FTC doesn't like that, so they bring in action under that. And then the Department of Justice doesn't like the way that he's doing the merchanting. But internally, everybody that knew the guy was like, oh, he's known about this for years. So he's out in the desert burying gold bars and, piles of cash. And so they're like among the industry that knew of this, there's all the scuttlebutt of like, hey, we should get a couple of metal detectors and go around St. George, Utah, and Las Vegas, Nevada, and Arizona, and try to find all these stashes where he stashed all his money, because he made millions of dollars, and the government had a full asset freeze in that case, but they didn't find all of it. And so there was like this feeling like, oh, there's hidden treasure because he's hidden it all. It's a crazy case. And then he's got this website up there that's talking about like how he hates the FTC and they suck and all the bad things they're done. Well, I mean, eventually he got a full asset freeze. They took all of his money from Ironworks, and then he went to jail. He's released now, I believe, but I think he was sentenced to 10 years. And then eventually released.
So
When COVID hit, he was released.
okay. So the FTC can't put you in jail, but the DOJ did under the money wire fraud. What part put him in jail? What is wire fraud? So doesn't every business found to be not following the rules commit wire fraud? Like in my case, when they came after me and said you are doing bad advertising, you're breaking the rules, and then I was sending money to my team members and other people across state lines, isn't that they could no? I don't get it. What's wire fraud?
The wire fraud here is this. So as I mentioned, he was getting third parties to set up merchant accounts. And so
Okay.
when you have a client that comes to learn.com or whatever, and then they want to buy a product, they process the payment through a portal that gets charged to a merchant account that's by Learn, which is by your company, right?
Yep.
They know that it's transparent. They know who they're paying, right? In this case, what's going on is they come to a website, let's call it, buyers.com. They go to buyers. If there's a buyers.com, it's not affiliated. I'm just making that up. I'm just using it. Just
Sorry.
my disclosure. I don't know if it probably exists. So they go to buyers.com and they think they're going to buy this service. Maybe it's a 6-week coaching package. They go in, they sign in for that. For this, it was a continuity offer. So it was like a free plus. So it could be like, here's like diabetes medication, or, a back end to learn how to set up an Amazon store. It's $1 setup, but then there's a $90 monthly subscription after that. So they go in there and they sign up. They don't really know it's $90 after 30 days. But so they sign up for the trial offer. And then when that hits, they put their credit card information. They don't know that they're not giving you the credit card information. They're giving a third party, because the third party is an independent person that's processing payments for this company. It's not related. So they're not really paying the company, you're paying a third party, and you don't know that. So you pay the third party, and then what do they do with that money? They take a 1-2% override, but then they give the rest to the main company that they think the client is interacting in. But it's all a deception, right? They're doing it so that if this merchant processing gets shut down because 30 days later they get charged $90, that's going to go for a few months, but then people are going to start to charge back. It's going to kill this. So what do? They move from that account to the next account, to the next account, to the next account, so they can perpetuate that fund. So you look at that Jen Shaw case with Homeland
Yes.
She was a Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. That's why she's in jail, is because she was doing something similar. And Homeland Security was the Department of Justice, or the Department of Homeland Security, is the one that brought that case out of New York. And so similar actions. So modern day money laundering is where you think you're paying company A, but you're really paying company A through Z. And then they take that money and they pay it back to company A so they can perpetuate that activity and not get shut down in the merchant processing. So the illegal activity is the interstate transfer of those funny monies once they've gone to company A, back to the main company. That's the money transfer, the wire transfer that
Wow.
they look at. So if you look at the
That's
iWorks case in Germany.
that's I know about this, Greg. Like this, people do this. This is advised by certain companies to help you get merchant processing. I've never touched it, refused. I had the same merchant account for 15, 16 years, but I'm getting cold sweats right now as you're talking because I know that this is out there, and people that are doing it are innocently probably saying, "Yeah, I'll go ahead and let so and so set up my merchant account." But what they don't realize is that is a jailable offense, and if you get caught, you are most likely going to jail. Like that is not a civil offense.
No, see, back in the day, it was like, come to Guido's laundromat. And then, the mafia is taking money from drug sales and prostitution, and they're running it through the laundromat to make it look legitimate, you see. But really all it is money laundering. That's traditional. That's what people think of money laundering. But today it's sophisticated, right? It's company A saying, come and buy services from us, but you're paying company B through Z. And then they transfer that across state lines. They call that factoring. And there are terrible cases that are like this, right? In the Ivy Capital case, which was a big, online coaching e-commerce telefloor in Utah, they didn't do money factoring or anything, but what they did is they had the merchant account set up in their wife's names. So the owners are like, hey, we've had some problems. We've been delisted or we've been TMF'd, which is when you do something wrong with a merchant account and they say, no, you can't have merchant processing abilities anymore. Visa, MasterCard, American Express say you can't have it. So they had their wives get those accounts. And what happened in that case? Their wives got sued in the action. So when the FTC came in and sued them, they sued their wives. And I'll tell you this, do not put your spouses on the front line. That if you think your relationship's bad beforehand or you don't communicate well, wait until you come home and be like, hey, honey, remember when I had you set up that merchant account? And well, the FTC just froze all of our assets and you've been named personally. So don't put your spouses on the front line on that. And a lot of times on it, the reason I say that is because you'll have like, oh, I'm helping a brother or a neighbor or a friend. I'll set up an account for this. But those people don't know the risks they're taking because if they default on that, they're personally liable for all those payments they processed on it. And that's the problem with that. Like in the iWorks case, you got somebody that goes and merchant processes that, gets shut down by the FTC, the DOJ, and then you get all these chargebacks. Well, who's liable for that? The person who signed the personal guarantee for the merchant.
Yeah.
And so it's just a big.
Yes, I do know of friends and I do know of people that use their spouses. They have bank accounts. I know of one friend. I'm not going to get into names. That's not really a friend, someone I know, that had an issue with a government body already once, and was a big enough issue that they struggle now to get processing or accounts and things, and they are now up and doing big things again, and they are using their spouse for all of it, as the owner of the company, as the merchant processing, as the bank. And I heard that, and this is a good person for the most part, right? From what I know, I don't know them well at all, but from what I know, and as far as I know, this person loves his wife and is a great relationship. They have kids. And I'm just like, do you know what you're doing? Like the level of risk. But anyway, so that's not the topic that was at hand today, but we just hit on something that I love. I think we're going to do this at the beginning of our episodes. We're going to dive into a particular unique case that and learn something unique.
It just opens up the discussion that there are so many nuances to marketing practices that most marketers don't even think about.
100%.
They never ask anybody like, hey, should I do this? They just do it. And then they normally come to me afterwards and are like, hey, I've been doing this. Is this okay? And I have to sit there and explain to them, first off, like, this is what you're doing. This is why it's wrong. And you have this trailing liability now, where it would be so much easier if they just got some good advice up front. Now, I get it. Some people have done it, naively. They've gone out and they've done some things that they shouldn't have done. But that's why consulting with somebody that understands this. And I mean, I know it so well because I've been doing it for almost 20 years. And so
Well, prime example. I'm gonna get this, and I promise, guys, we're gonna start the episode. The topic today is, are you too small to get sued, or what if you take your operations offshore? What if you're not American? What if you're Australian and Canadian? Can you still get sued by the FTC? That's the topic at hand today. But before we get into that, I feel like we should label this episode "Don't Get Your Wife Sued by the FTC." That would be a really good title. But I want to give an example of the naivety or just doing something with good intentions, but how the law, and I'm not even going to say, I'm not calling out the FTC or any government body specifically, just the law can turn that, all right? And this is what I've been learning. So, and Greg came in and it's exactly what he said. As a client said, hey, Greg, look what I've been doing. What do you think? I built this whole scorecard system for our telesales team where it was like all the calls that led to a sale would get scored and would get reviewed. And I did this with great intention because I want to make sure we're compliant. I want to make sure bad promises aren't. I don't want to break any rules. But I had all of this stuff. I had all the calls indexed and scored and I had all this documentation, and we were scoring the agents. And when time came for discovery, and I was turning over things, and the opposing party, in this case the FTC, found out that we had the scorecard system, they were like, ooh, turn it over. And as soon as it said that, I'm like,
Yeah. Well, as soon as you told me you did that, and I was like, oh, don't do that.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was just, review the calls, but do it a certain way, and getting the legal advice and getting it from the right person. And I want to stress that, guys, please. I know that as Greg and I have been out with this movement, I've been getting messages from a lot of you, and a lot of you will be like, my attorney is reviewing it. And all I want to respond with and say is, who's your attorney and what experience specifically with the FTC and other state agencies do they have? Because a normal Joe Schmo attorney down the street, no offense against them, most likely 95% chance don't have the knowledge they need. So anyways, I ended up getting hurt by something that had great intention because I did not understand the law and how it would be used. And so now I'm just saying, ask the attorneys, get a good attorney. Anyways, Greg, let's get started with the episode at hand.
Discoverable too, because you didn't have a law firm that was attached to it. You didn't
100%.
privilege.
100%.
So
right. There was no privilege.
Little things, just like little things that just change it. So anyway, we can jump into it. I'm ready.
All right.
Okay.
So 11 minutes or 12 minutes after starting the episode, let's talk about the topic at hand. I get this all the time. So, Greg, can a company doing $100,000 a year in revenue potentially get hit by a government body?
Yeah, I mean, I've had clients where they've gotten sued by the FTC, and the settlement was a watch. I mean, it's
really.
Oh yeah.
Are you serious?
Uh-huh.
The settlement was a watch?
Yeah. So there was a case out of
take my watch and my ring off.
I know, that's right. Well, you're done, man. They're not coming. You disclosed.
I don't know.
No. Yeah, it was a terrible case, and it was a case out of Idaho, and what happened was this guy. It was a telemarketing floor. A guy hit by the FTC, and this guy horribly had become a partner just like 3 weeks before the FTC sued him. So they didn't care. He was partner when they filed the suit. And so he gave up, I don't remember if it was a Rolex or, Omega or whatever the watch was, but that was his settlement, was his watch. Now he was just barely into it, but that company wasn't generating a ton of money in sales.
I would have loved if my settlement was just a watch.
I represented Jared Rodenbaugh in the Vision Solutions case. That was like $1 million in 5 years that they had generated. I think they had 1,000 clients. So no, the FTC can bring an action against any company. And then there's several others. The Capital Investments case, the Manhattan Beach Venture case. I mean, the Doc Prep case. I mean, 130 clients, I think, is what Doc Prep had. I mean, the FTC can bring action. It's a misnomer to think, well, I have to be generating millions of dollars before I'm on. No, if you're aggressive enough and your advertising's out there, and they think, because what they'll look at it and think that you can scale, right? You're going to scale your business. So they don't care if you're small or whatever size you are. If they think that you're out there and you're going to be advertising, then they'll do it. The Campbell Capital case, 600 clients, you don't have to be the million dollars cases. There's a lot of cases.
So I have these notes, right? I got them from Greg. So check this out. And to my team, thank you guys for doing all the research. Awesome team here. Vision Solution Marketing had 1,100 customers. CD Capital, you mentioned them before, Greg, 243 customers. Manhattan Beach, 2,800 customers. Doc Prep, 136 customers. Guys, the only reason we're not telling you their revenue is because we don't know. But somehow we do know how many customers they had. Must have pulled it from there. And then Campbell Capital, 603 customers. You just mentioned a case. We just talked about a case not long ago against Weblio something or the other. That was
That
like
was the one that was
eight.
filed 2 weeks ago, the Weblio
Yeah.
case. And yeah,
Yeah. And
it was like they were been in business for 6 years and they had generated like $7 million. Like
yeah,
it wasn't a crazy amount. I mean, how many of you generate? I mean, we're not talking about net profits. We're talking about gross
grocery.
revenues,
Yeah.
right? $7 million in 6 years. So that, I mean, that's not a lot, right? I mean, of those listening today, are you saying that you've generated under $1 million in revenue, for the entire year? And that there's a lot of marketers, right, that are there.
Yeah.
If you're
Well,
saying I've only done 200,000, but some of these cases they weren't doing a couple $100,000 a year. The Vision Solutions case, that was small time. I think it
yeah.
was 250 a year is what they were generating.
A couple of other people that got named on my case had not earned a lot. That's all I can say. I don't want to obviously get into the details, but let's just say it wasn't an amount that you would think is worthy or would be worthy. Okay, Greg, here's why I think people believe you have to be doing a lot of money. And so let's get into this conversation. So the resounding answer, everybody, is no. Even if you're doing a couple $100,000, you got a nice watch, they could take it. All right. And it's not the watch. I also want everyone to understand something. Everyone keeps thinking, well, they'll come to me and be like, Anik, well, man, you did tens of millions of dollars and only got $2.5 million fine. Oh, you got away with not so bad. What about the 1 million dollars I spent on legal fees? What about the 300 grand I spent on the firms that did all the digging up because we had to deliver all this material? What about the fact that for a year and a half I didn't know if I was waking up and shitting to the left or to the right? What about the fact that all that business, all that time, I was given proper advice to pull back my business in many ways and I lost all that revenue? What about the fact that I had to let go of nearly, like, I don't know, 80, 70, 80 people on my team? What about the fact that, we were, guys, I'll keep going. The amount of PTSD from that is ridiculous. And here's what happens when you're a smaller business. You still got to do all of that. You still got to defend yourself. You still got to do the discovery process. You still got to hire a lawyer. And all of those fees they're ridiculous or horrible. Then, not to mention going to sleep every night thinking, God forbid, what they're going to say about me during the press release. Because till this day, I hold to the fact that I do not agree with everything that was said about me or that I have been quote unquote accused of. I settled because it was the right thing to do for my business, my sanity, and everything else. And I respect the commission's decision, and I know the rules, and I plan to follow and train and teach. But guys, it's hell. I'm sorry I'm going on this like little rant right now, but it really pisses me off when I hear someone say, "Oh man, you only got away with a couple $1 million." It's just so ignorant because you don't understand. And I know you don't understand. I didn't understand, right? The second piece of it is people are saying, "Well, I'm too small to matter." Well, it's like two matters to that. First of all, factually, again, incorrect. If you're getting legal advice that says that, fire that attorney because they're an idiot. Secondly, factually, there's case after case after case of smaller companies. And number three, I'll just say this. Do you really want to set up the shitty habits now and then try to change them when you're millions of dollars in and you're actually building a big business? It's stupid. You won't be able to do it. You'll walk right into the trap. So, please stop with that. But here's why, and this is what I thought, Greg, for a while, and I don't know, maybe it is still the case. You tell us. A lot of people think that the FTC sues you or the government state agencies sue you and keep the money. So a lot of people think that when I gave $2.5 million as whatever settlement, people are like, oh yeah, well that's just the Biden administration trying to money grab from people, to pay for all their wars they're having and all this jazz. And I would have agreed with that. I would have been like, oh, you're right. Except I came to learn that is not the case. The FTC does not keep the money they take. It does not go to their pockets. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think it'll help people understand. People think this is a money grab, so they will go for the bigger companies to get more money. So if I'm smaller, they're not gonna waste their time with me. Talk about that.
Well, there's two issues I'm going to raise. One is scalability, and the second one is consumer redress under the acts. So the first one is just because you're small and you're not doing a lot right now, the FTC doesn't know that. They don't know, one, they don't know how big you're going to get or whether you've got shell corps and you've got 100 other businesses out there at that time. And so part of the process is investigation, right? When they bring a lawsuit, they do the first section of any lawsuit is discovery. They're going to find out everything about that. So when they see one particular offer, they don't know if it's isolated or if you have dozens of similar offers that are out there. So scalability is something they're always looking at. Like, is it scaled bigger than, or is it going to scale bigger? They just know that you're violating the law. So regardless of size, they're going to go after. So that's number one. Number two is when they go into it and they're looking at trying to expand on what you're trying to achieve, they're going to look at, consumer redress. Now, Section 19, we talked about in other podcasts about telemarketing activities. Under that law, it basically says that, they can disgorge assets to be able to redress consumer needs. So if the government thinks that you're taking from clients, they want to try to, one, stop the bad act, and two, they want to get as much money as possible to pay back to those clients that have participated in those bad actions, who have been damaged by your bad acts. So when they do like a settlement with Learn and other cases, what they want to do is get that money in so that they can then reach out to the consumers who have said they've been harmed and try to provide. And it's not just the people who raise their hand. It could be everybody that's purchased that offer. They get a list, and then they get to say and send correspondence to those people and say, hey, listen, we've recovered some money from this business. We want to try to send some of that money back to you. So a good portion, if not a majority of the money that's retained by the FTC through these settlements really does go back to the consumers, because that was something that was highly criticized back in the day, was the FTC is just doing this as a money grab. And there were state attorney general's offices were doing that. They were getting these big judgments against companies because you can be sued by an AG's office too. And then they were just keeping the money. And that was a huge uproar and in several different states. So they've changed the rules. So the FTC doesn't want to play the optics of that. Hey, we're going to take this money and we're going to pocket it. They get money from other resources. I mean, they'll cover some administration and court costs for sure, but a vast majority of what they get is going to go for consumer redress because that's what the act requires, especially under Section 19.
So in my case, Greg, $2.5 million, let's say only one of it. Like, let's say only enough customers reply to the email they send that one of it is quote unquote claimed. What happens to the other 1.5? Do they just divvy it out and give it out on their own? Do they keep it? Or are you saying, hey man, that never happens? Pretty much all the money usually goes really quickly.
I don't know the internal workings on how it works with the FTC, but I can tell you, I know because I will help the Securities and Exchange Commission on a Ponzi scheme case, which is kind of similar to a regulatory action that we have here, where what they do is they get an asset freeze against an investment firm that's basically taking money and then paying old investors and news. That's basically a Ponzi scheme, right? And they'll take that money and then what they do is they allocate it by a percentage of what their damage was. So if one client paid 30,000, another client paid 10,000, if there's $2 million, it's proportionally given based upon the amount they've paid. And so they'll go through and they'll contact those clients for a period of time. And if they raise their hands and say, yes, I'm going to participate in it. And it's a lengthy period of time, 6 months or more. And if they get a hold of them and they say yes, then they'll pay those clients out. But if there's money left over, they'll go back and reallocate that money to the people that did raise their hand. So I assume the FTC has something similar in place, that they'll try to reach out to as many people as possible of those who, eventually say, yes, I'm going to participate. If there's leftover money, it will generally, I imagine, will either go into a fund to, provide reimbursement to other clients or to those clients who raise their hands. So I don't foresee there's a lot of money that's just kept in reserve for that.
Yeah. So everyone know that.
You're dealing with customers, if they don't respond, it could be a lengthy process, could take a while before that's all distributed to the clients.
But let it be noted, the FTC's budget is not run by their collections, and that is a misunderstanding in our community. It's a budget they get from the government. I mean, it's in the budget. Like, they just get money from the government.
And they do that annual report every year. So the annual report for 2023 should come out in the next couple of months, and we should know like how much money they generated and, where the resources and how much came from the government. So it's all public oversight. They have to allow that knowledge
Yeah.
because they're a government entity. So.
So in that regard, yeah, but have they been growing right now at the FTC, like under Biden's administration? I heard someone say this, but I don't know if it's true or not. Did their budget go way up? Are they hiring way more lawyers? Are they getting way more aggressive? I just heard it. I have no idea, no clue.
I've been doing this for a long time. When Trump was elected into office, one of the big things was, oh, look, Obama's gone, and now we're going to have conservative that's going to be in there, and the federal regulatory action is going to be less. It didn't go down. The thing is that the way the FTC set up, you'll see that there's a revolving door for the FTC commissioners and the chair. Those will change every few years, and they can be political. I mean, there's always a balance on the commission of conservatives and liberals. So you've got that kind of, you'll see around, but the inner workings of the the division directors, some of those people have been there for 30 plus years, and their mentality and their philosophies on enforcement haven't changed. And so you may see a president change or the chair change, but the underlying philosophies of each division of the Federal Trade Commission, consumer protection, marketing practices, advertising, those all stay because the people who've been there for a long time, and their philosophies haven't changed. So I don't know. I mean, regardless if the budget goes up or down for more, I think they've been pretty consistently aggressive against bad marketing claims. But, I think they've gotten more savvy over the years for sure. When I first started practicing law, I don't think the government understood affiliate marketing. I don't think they understood merchant processing. I don't think they know it now. They've taken time over the last 20 years to become really knowledgeable about how advertising copy works and social media works and Google ads and how all of this works. So they've taught themselves. They've become more sophisticated. If anything, I think they've become in a lot of ways, a very compelling and very, a large adversary in this, because they understand the marketing world way better than they did 20 years ago. I mean, there were times where I was on the phone in past cases where I was trying to explain to them how things work. I don't have to have those conversations now. They know how they work. They know oftentimes better how the client's inner workings can work before than I do, because they've been looking at it for a year, and I've only been on the case for maybe a couple of months. So they're a good adversary for sure.
So it doesn't matter to them if they collect a smaller amount from you or a larger amount. It's all relative to how many customers you have that they need to give it back to. So if they're collecting a smaller amount from you, it's because you're a smaller business, hence you had less customers, hence they have less people to make whole. So if you are just getting started, if you are doing a few $100,000 a year, if you are doing a few million a year, you need to know and follow the rules. Please, please, please stop trying to gamify things right now. Stop trying to fly under the radar. It is not the right way to build a business. And it's just,
regardless of what you've been told, Anik,
yeah,
size doesn't matter.
Regardless of what I've been told, size. You hear that, ladies? All right.
Low settlements sometimes, and you're like, oh, but you don't understand. That's all they have, because some marketing agencies and companies, they've blown it. They've gone out and blown it. That's all they had.
So as a side tangent, before we talk about the next thing that marketers like to and want to do to try to get around the rules, one thing, this is a total digression, one thing that I have been shocked and appalled by. So I thought that I did a horrible job with my finances, if I'm being very honest. I kept a lot of money in the company. I tried to always grow aggressively. I spent a lot of money trying to build this tech, that office, this, that. Guys, never blew money on like gold chains and gold teeth and all, though. That'd be kind of cool. They would take my gold tooth. That would be. Come on, FTC. 2024. Yeah, that's true. All right. So I didn't blow money, but at the same time, I didn't invest. I didn't learn about like investing in real estate and things like the way I know now. Why my eyes are open. I wish I knew this 10, 15 years ago. Holy smokes. Right? And so I really was hard on myself. So then we start going through this case, and I'm talking to Greg, and I'm talking to Michael, my other attorney, and I start to see their reactions to my disclosures. And then I start to talk to other friends who have been investigated or closed cases, or again, people I've now become friends with, but didn't know at the time I was getting connected with them. I come to realize most marketers in our industry are just broke. They don't have very much. And so, you see a small settlement amount. Greg would tell me, well, I happen to know the behind the scenes on that case, and I'm just letting you know that that was not a small settlement amount to the person. And in my case, people say, well, shit, Anik, so you telling me you only had $2.5 million. We could talk about how they determine what to pay, and it's a negotiation at the end. And no, that's not it. I'm still living in my home and driving my cars and still have a good life. But did I get disrupted? I lost a $40 million. It was going to be $40 million a year company that I had to now completely repurpose, reshift. I lost an amazing team I built. Well, I survived to fight another day. Of course, that's why we settled, right? There has to be compromise on both sides. That's a settlement. But anyways, I just wanted to go on this digression to say, guys, ears and eyes open. Like, a lot of people that end up getting hit by them, they're not being tricky. They're not being this. They just don't have it. They literally just don't have it. They've been blowing money. And it's unfortunate, but it is also the case that a lot of these collections are made by ability to pay. So it seems unfair, because if you have a higher ability to pay, you will pay.
Well, but it plays into their perception of the industry as well. They think
Yeah.
you're all the influencers that look like you got Lambos and Ferraris and fancy cars and everything, who are broke. And so when they get into a case and they look at a financial disclosure and the owners of the company have nothing, they're like, if you were doing so well and you were teaching your clients how to do this so well and it was a money making opportunity, then why are you broke? Because why wouldn't you just be doing it yourself and making the money? And so it leads them into their belief and gives them righteous indignation to say, hey, these marketers are misleading people because look, their lives are terrible messes and they have no money. So
Yeah.
if there's a case like yours where they come in, they're like, oh, there's decent financials, it supports the business, but then we negotiate. We're negotiators as attorneys. We're not just going to go in and say, hey,
Yeah.
FTC, here's everything, because we might as well just litigate it. And we've talked about it a lot, but we came to a resolution. So sometimes you'll see settlements in cases that are so super low and you'll think, I can't fathom that that's all they paid. It may be all they had. Or
Yeah.
sometimes you look at cases and settlements and you say, well, I thought they'd have more, but maybe it was a settlement because it was a
Yeah.
settlement.
Yeah. And to be clear, the FTC went after them just as aggressively as they would anyone else, and it's just that was what it was. Last piece here before we wrap up this episode. Sorry, guys, I know we've been going a little long, but I love the tangents. I think the context gives a lot of people meaning. Okay. I've heard people come up with a creative solution ever since I've been openly talking about this. I've heard people say, well, you know what? I'm just going to take my business offshore so I don't have to deal with this. To which I chuckle and say, well, are you going to, because you're still here. You're still an American citizen. And then they say, well, I'm going to renounce my citizenship. Or even better, I had a conversation with someone out of Australia that point blank said, I don't need to worry about these laws or rules because I'm in Australia. They can't come for me anyways. And I just remember talking about this with you before, so I have some perspective on that. But talk to us. How far do the arms of the compliance regulations in the United States reach?
Well, I had a case that I settled in 2022 where the clients had gone to an attorney. They're like, we need to set up a Cook Islands trust and we need to get all of our assets offshore because that'll protect it. When I gave the financial disclosures, I didn't know there was a Cook Island trust because they didn't tell me. But the FTC already knew. Because you know what? There's a thing called extradition that allows them, if there's a country that they have relationships and treaties with, the government can go into and they can go after those assets as well. And that's what they did in this case. They knew about it beforehand. And guess what was part of that settlement? The Cook Islands Trust. It wasn't the United States, it was offshore. And, are there other cases? Sure. Matt Lloyd, he was in Canada. He had property in Costa Rica. He settled with the FTC with the Moat case. Here's the just it is the biggest myth. It's like, pony, unicorns and fairy tales or whatever, that you think that leprechauns are going to, jump out and they're going to be protected if you move to somewhere else, except for Ireland. I will say that. I said leprechauns. So it made me think of Ireland. Ireland doesn't have extradition And Anik will laugh about this because I always say you can always move to Ireland. There's no extradition. But in countries, in most countries, the EU, Australia, there's extradition. And so if you're in one of those countries and you're generating money in the United States, do you think that they're just the federal government's going to be like, oh yeah, you're in Australia, that's going to be great? No, let's go ahead and let's take care of that. No, that's not the way it goes.
Mm.
Sorry, my wife
No,
called
all
right
good.
in the middle of all this. She's wondering, it's my daughter's birthday today, and she got into my rant about extradition. But you're fooling yourself if you think you're going to move to Mexico or Canada or European Union or the UK or Australia. All those countries have extradition, right? They can go after your assets. What they'll do first off is they'll freeze your assets in the US. They'll stop your merchant processing here in the United States. And then if they have treaties with the country, they'll freeze the assets in that country. They'll go after that as well. So those are all things that they'll start to go after.
So if they're in Canada, Matt Lloyd was not an American citizen. And I don't mean to be picking on Matt Lloyd. I don't know him, and I have no opinion on this case, except for Matt Lloyd was not an American citizen and had property taken over as part of his settlement that was not on American shores. So here's a guy who had foreign accounts and himself was foreigner. His companies were foreign, and it did not matter. It was a big case, and it was one that dragged on, and it was one that was a very expensive case. I think total, what, $20+ million or something for that one to.
And I don't know if they took all of, because again, I wasn't on that case. I don't know what
Yeah.
his assets were. I don't know.
Yeah.
Did he take 100% of his? I doubt it, but they took a good chunk of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, no, you're not protected. Don't do that, guys. It is so much easier. Please do not sit here and figure out how to continue selling the way you are selling what you are selling, but you're really to denounce your citizenship, because that process takes a while too, by the way. Denouncing an American citizenship is not that easy. There's a whole process. There's taxes to pay. There's permissions to be had. There's this to be done, that to be done, and then you leave, and then you can't come back for a year. I know people that have left not for this reason. They let go of their citizenship for other reasons, and I saw what they had to go through. It's just so much easier, right? And instead of having all these foreign accounts, the other thing I want to explain to everybody here's how the foreign account thing works. And Greg, if I'm off base, it's just because to my marketer brain or my normal non-legal brain, this made sense. So if I'm misquoting, just correct me. When you have an offshore account, as per the rules of the government and the IRS, you still have to disclose those accounts. Even if they're not taxable, blah, 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 if you have control, they must be disclosed. If they are disclosed, they will show up on your financial disclosures, or they have to legally, when you disclose to the FTC or to any state government body. At which point, sure, I'll play along for a minute. Let's assume the government really can't reach those assets. They really couldn't pull them out, but they know about them. So what they'll simply say to you is, that's your problem. If you want to settle, we're going to include those assets in the settlement amount. How you get access to them is a you issue, not an us issue. And if you're not willing to access those funds, we're going to go ahead and sue you. And when we sue you, we'll see where the chips fall. And you, at that moment, are only in settlement conversations because you don't want a lawsuit, because you don't want to have to pay the $3, $4, $5 million in legal fees. So what ends up happening is the fact that you were sold this idea that your offshore assets are protected and untouchable, even if it's true, which it probably isn't, even if it's true, is irrelevant. Because as long as you're disclosing it, whoever's coming after you is just going to say, I'm going to include those in your assets when we come to a settlement amount. And that right there should put a lot of that crap to rest. So stop in the end. It's just I feel like, Greg, I know you've been doing this for 20 years, and I used to. I don't think I frustrate him as much. But in the beginning, I'd be like, Greg, what about this? What about that? What about this? And Greg would be like, just stop. And I'm like, try this way, try it that way. I now want to grab people sometimes, just shake them by the shoulder and be like, just stop. Don't, not this way, that way, this way. Follow the rules. It's totally doable. Do it the right way. So if you're too small, you can still get in trouble. If you're offshore, you can still get in trouble. If you're not a citizen, you live off the country, but you make even a penny in the United States, the laws will still apply, and we still think that you should be following the rules. Greg, last word on this before we wrap up this episode?
Last word, when driving the UK, drive on the right side of the road. I don't write. I'm on the left side of the road. I don't know if that's your last. The reason you said that is it's funny because you're like, oh, I have to abide the rules and laws if I'm in another country or do business there. My wife and I went to the UK in September. Guess what I just got yesterday on email? A parking. Well, it was a driving ticket. I didn't know I was driving in the bus lane in London. I didn't
Yeah,
know. I was just making sure I was on the left side of the road so I didn't get in trouble or I didn't get in an accident. But the thing is when you're in other countries and you do business or you participate, you have to follow
their
their
rules.
rules.
Yeah,
So
their rules
it
apply.
just blows my mind that people think that, oh, I can just do whatever I want because I'm in Sweden or I'm in Greece or wherever you're at. The thing is if you're going to do business in the United States, you have to follow the rules. And so
Yeah,
just like if I want to go visit the UK or Australia, I have to follow their rules as well. I
yeah,
can't just go and be that obnoxious American tourist that I tend to be. No, I don't. So just make sure you follow the rules. It's
yeah.
easy. It's easy. No, well, understanding your rules is hard.
It's it's not. Yeah, I would say it's not hard. I would probably not say it's easy. I'd say it's not hard. And what I would say is knowing the rules is the hardest part. I didn't understand them, guys. 20 plus years, having done God knows how many, couple hundred million in sales and doing it the right way. And a good person. I'm a good person. And I just didn't know them. I didn't know what I didn't know. So that's a perfect segue to don'tSayThat.com. Grab the book, ComplianceSummit.com. Get your butt here. Meet us in person. Come hang out. Ask questions, do Q&A, roundtable. We'll be here in the DC area. ComplianceSummit.com to grab your tickets. Bring your team, bring your staff, bring everyone. Grab as many tickets as you can. It will be intimate, though, so we're not going to make it, I don't know, going for like 120, 125 people. Let's see. Let's see how it goes. The first one we did was an blazing, amazing success. It was like 60 people. Everyone loved it. And then, of course, keep your eyes and ears open. So the book is going to launch on Feb 13th, but keep your eyes and ears open for our certification programs, our academies, and all the other cool stuff, plus a software coming out, which is going to help you monitor your entire company and all your compliance needs in one place. Super excited for that. Greg, as always, thank you. I'm going to let you officially get back. I know the wife is calling. I don't want to be in trouble with her. So get back to the birthday party. Have a blast. And to the rest of you, as I always say, when life pushes you, stand straight, smile, push it the heck back. See you in the next episode, guys. Bye.